All right. Hi, everybody. I hope that everybody has had a good day, has had a good night, has had a good yesterday. It is Wednesday. Pretty good, huh? I know what day it is, generally. Okay. Housekeeping. Okay. Yeah. All right. Before I forget, I got a direct message yesterday from somebody that said, "What is the deal with what's behind you in the video?" That's a television commercial from when I was a kid. If you're old enough to remember, sing along with the lyrics. All right, Corbin? Yeah, Corbin agrees. Okay, so housekeeping. Let's do yesterday's one-page comic was from the suggestion of. Yes, look it up because he's 1,000. A page about an aspiring paperback writer like the song. And that was from a man so anonymous, he's anonymous twice. Anonymous. Hi, Mike. Okay. So, yeah, this one was a lot of fun. I took a weird bent on it. I drew this in black pencil crayon on a white piece of paper and then assembled the various bits into this page. I had a lot of open-ended panels in this, just for variety. And who doesn't like variety, Corbin? Do you like variety? Corbin loves it. So, who's he talking to? There's nobody else in the video. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. I just thought I like stream of consciousness stories. I like stories from the perspective of the person writing them, and I like when the person that is writing. This is a Vonnegut thing, a Kurt Vonnegut thing. If you haven't read him, you should give him a try, because he'll edit himself, and I don't know why I even wrote that. He'll type that in a piece, and it's like, although I didn't know it at the time, I would learn my lessons from using passages like this in my writing. He'll put it in the middle of a story. So I like that. I like when a narrator comments on what it is that they're narrating, but in response to how they're narrating it. So that's why I put stuff in there like, come on, Sheila. You got to have fun. Hello, can I help you? Would you like to be in camera? Hey, everybody. How you doing? Give me $5. Okay. You happy now? So we've got some more suggestions to work on for today. I thought I would switch it up. Yesterday I worked on black pencil on white paper. So I thought today, maybe we'll do the opposite. We'll see. But, that's an idea. Just a thought. So we got a couple things outstanding. Let's see. I pulled 3 more prompts from the magic bag today on DD Stream of Coral, Demon, and Seagull. So, we're looking at that. Oh, we got somebody talking in here. Hey, Philip. Good afternoon. Okay, so one is we have available is the 3-word choice, but I just did one yesterday, so we're not going to do that one today. We've got Jurassic Park with sloths, or The Matrix with sloths, scratch and sniff denominations of currency, horses and hearses, or Bela Lugosi as a rock star. So there's some fun ones in there. What do you think, Corbin? You got a specific preference here? You want to pick something off the page? Well, he's leaning towards horses and hearses. At least that's what he's rubbing his face on. All right. And if anybody wants to throw any other ideas out there, you're always welcome to do so. All right. Horses and hearses. Horses and hearses. That's what we're doing. Okay. Clearly, I'm in a mood. It's been a good day. I got to finally make contact with somebody I haven't been able to chat with in a little bit. And that was important to me because good person, good friend. But, ships to pass in the night. Oh. So this suggestion today is from the Kremlinator. I'll write it down. So I've made a note. Anyhow, so this week has been a good output. I'm feeling good with the output. I'll just show you that. This is what I posted Monday morning. The Elvis resurrected for the holidays, right? Just picture the mad scientist voice like that, you know. So he says, "Merry Christmas, everybody." It's kind of like a Harry Carey in my head, anyways. And then the unicorn. What did I call this? Don't be rude. It's the unicorn mermaid fence suggestion. And then what I posted today was paperback writer. Yeah. So a little bit of Fabio action in there for you, huh? Yeah. I like Fabio. He's macho. All right. So switching the old Camaronis. Here we go. I've got it written down here for what today's suggestion is. I'm going to call him the Kremlinator. Kremlinator. There we go. So, yeah, this is today's idea, which I'm looking forward to doing. Let's see if I can find a white pencil cream. Hey, what? Hey, huh? How? If anybody has any thoughts or anything they want to chat about, I've got an idea of what I want to talk about today. And it's this week, everything I'm talking about is structured around artistic reality or being realistic as creative types. And so today's an extension of that. But there's been some heady talk the last couple of days about process and about decisions and about being realistic about how you're going about doing what you're doing with creating your chosen form of expression. So I'm just going to continue on that path. But if there's anything that's come to people since the stream where we chat about it that you want to sort of feed into, you're more than welcome to do so. I disagree with everything you said last 2 days, Christopher. Art is stupid. Okay. My point is that sometimes we don't have the opportunity in the old noggin while the conversation's going on to input the thing that we want to input. So if anybody ever feels like, you know what, I came up with this, well, feel free to spit it out like hot fire. So, hey, Dee Dee's joined us. Hi, Dee Dee. Welcome aboard. Okay, so today is Hearses and Horses, suggested by the Kremlinator. The Kremlinator. Uh-oh. See you soon, Dee Dee. Dee Dee's got to reboot her modem. Hopefully it's not me making a mess of things. Okay, so, yeah, I think I've got some ideas about how I'm going to go about doing this, but I haven't thought too deep about it, if you know what I mean. I don't with any of these things. I really just sort of get rolling as I get rolling. And for me, that works. Because if I overinvest, if I overthink a project before I start it, it takes half the juice away. You know what I mean? Like it takes away half of the exciting exploration part, the exciting, ooh, what am I going to do now? And I like the idea of the impulsiveness of it, of the intuitiveness of it when you're sitting down and you're just taking a go at it. I'm just going to take a crack and see what I come up with, on the fly. And I know that other people have far more structured approaches to what they're doing, and that's completely legitimate. There's no right or wrong way for the only way to do things, but there is a right or wrong way for each individual. So that's important. Okay, following the thread that I've been sort of chatting about this week, I've been trying to chat about reality. That guy would know. And what I mean by reality is being realistic and being thinking about process and progress, right? There's something to be said for how your perspective is on how you're going about creating. And I mean, there can be the mindset that you're walking into it with it being one of, I'm not, this is a slog. This is a hard path to walk. You can have the mindset of it's a lot of labor. It's a real laborious task to produce stuff. That's fine. Some people do that too. But I don't know. Personally, I think that sometimes when we walk into, it's like when you walk into a room prepared for a fight. It's when you walk into a room just dreading more of the same. You know what I mean? Like it's a humdrum mental aesthetic of, things probably aren't going to go well. The sort of thinking of like, anybody know the name of the blue guy, Winnie the Pooh? He was a donkey. Anyways, I don't think that was by accident. What Eeyore? It's Eeyore. So I mean, Eeyore had that. It's a nice day out today, Eeyore. It's probably gonna rain. But when it comes to your creative journey and the things that you're doing and the things that you're learning as you go and the things that you're figuring out and plotting ahead of yourself, sometimes those things. Thank you, Philip. Yeah, Eeyore. It is. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. The thing about your creative path, your creative journey, I'm working on a black heavy grade cardstock, for if anybody's wondering, is that depending upon your mindset as you walk into this situation, there's going to be looking at it. Just sit on your chair. There's going to be the mindset of this is going to be hard. This is going to be challenging. This is going to be, burdensome, and I don't know what I'm taking on. Or it can just be, let's go, let's have fun. There's the extremes, right? But sometimes I don't think what we take stock of enough is that despite this arduous pain and development and growth and evolution, or not, or just the arduousness of trying to get the thoughts out of your head onto some kind of expression, some sort of form of expression, whether it's music or visual or texture, whatever it is that I don't think there's enough appreciation. I'm going to see if I turn this off, if it takes down that glare. If that helps, I think that might help. Maybe if I just shut this off entirely. Is that better? I think that's better. We're going to go with that. Okay. I think, yep. Hi, Dee. Welcome back. I don't think there's enough aesthetic appreciation for people to consider about the things you have learned and the things you have overcome sometimes, because, we're always about, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to grow this way, I want to grow that way. And sometimes people don't sit down and appreciate the fact that, hey, maybe I can dial into the fact that I've learned how to do A, B, C, and D. So, because the arduousness, the challenge, the pain, the developmental growth, the labor of completing work, those are hurdles. Those are major hurdles. And those sort of hurdles, when you reflect on those, you got to realize that's progress, right? You got to realize that's accomplishment. Hey man, how's your movie going? Excellent. That's excellent. Hey, shamelessly promoted, sir. That's fantastic. Nice to hear from you, Jim. Yeah, so that progress that you get from those accomplishments, those hurdles that you've ran over, appreciate those, celebrate those to some extent. Like allow yourself the realization and the understanding that, I've accomplished a thing or two with my time, as opposed to being more focused specifically on the hardship of whatever you're engaged in now, or the challenge of whatever growth or future you might have ahead of you. Sometimes if you recognize those things that you've already done, it takes that weight off, right? Maybe it's just me. I don't know. But these sort of taking stock things is something I appreciate far more in the last few years. And the reason that I appreciate those far more in the last few years has a lot to do with the fact that, when you go through an experience, and I went through a big experience in the last couple of years, you sort of got to look at yourself in an honest way and say, now what? And I think we do that for everything, right? But when you have a big moment, a big experience that sort of forces you to have to change your entire headspace and your entire, living structure, right? That situation is one that can give you a moment of realization and self-evaluation. And rather than focusing on the challenges and the newness, which might not be positive newness, it might be all newness, those are scientific terms. Focus on the fact that you've got through all those other things. This is a piece of cake. White and black paper, you're excelling against the laws of science. Science! Love it. Thanks, Jim. Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, so take that. Take the accomplishments that you've made. Take the things that you've done. Take the knowledge of how you've handled previous situations, how you've handled overcoming obstacles, and use that. That's your strength. That's your energy. That's your oil can. That's your gasoline tank. That's whatever it is that you need it to be, in whatever headspace you need to look at it as, so that, it lets you light a fire. See where I was going with that? And do the thing you need to do. That's the way I look at stuff. What happened for me is that my vision went when I had a DKA in 2023, and I woke up and it was shapes and colors, right? So when you wake up and suddenly you realize that something that's kind of an important, integral part of who you are just disappeared overnight, it sort of makes you go, okay, what now? And mind you, it was something to do with your eyes collect sugar on your lenses. And so if you have elevated amounts of sugar in your body, it milks up your eyes. So, and it had been building and building and building, and then it hit some kind of point where it just went, and it dissipates fairly quick as soon as you can get your body's blood sugar down and it gets absorbed in your body. But you don't know that at the time when you wake up, and you are, for all extents and purposes, legally blind. So that made me think of things. And that's what my thing is, right? And then, of course, it changes about realizing it's diabetes, blah, blah, blah. But it made me sort of take stock of what have I been doing? What does this mean about me now? And what's next, right? Is that picking up? Yeah, okay, you can see that. So, and makes you ask those questions, those larger questions that until now you may well have not asked yet. Because honestly, you're just snap, 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 rolling along. Oh, I like this. There's Didi's emojied. You've emojied. Science! Takes me a minute. What is that, a poop shape? What's the bad mean? Poop? Huh? Yeah, that's cool. I like the emojis, but I'm that basic that it takes me a second to process. What is that? What are you, huh? Science! Yeah, that's the only way to say that word, by the way. I could never be a scientist officially because I'd be shouting it all the time and everybody else in the lab would hate my guts. There's a whole bunch of words like that for me. Anyways, I think that when we look at the accomplishments that we've made over time and whether or not these things are 20 years down the road, whether or not it's something, well, I did this, but it doesn't necessarily apply to what I'm doing now, except for technically it does, right? There we go, Philip. Philip reads science the same way in his head. Good for you. It's the only way to do it. There's a thing that we can do where we can take this sort of point in our whatever we're dealing with now and look at some of the things that we've learned of and that we've done in the past that don't necessarily apply in the same way anymore because maybe something changes along the way, like we don't use rotary telephones anymore, but at the same time, there's the realization that you have an underpinning of how exactly telephone signals work. So there's something out of it, right? But we forget about thinking about, well, I know how telephone signals work because you're just so focused on, and the analog doesn't happen anymore, right? Am I blinding you with science? Anyway, you open that up. So there's that moment. You got to take that moment. You got to have that little realization that, I'm going to acknowledge the fact that there is some surface skills that I keep developing and acquiring for myself as I go. And the more that we can look at things in that regard, the more that we can figure out taking what may have be considered to some extent a lost skill and reworking how we do that, in whatever it is that we're working on now. If you can figure out how to wire an old telephone, there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do with wiring fun little gadgets for train sets and things like that. Like it's so it parallels with the most random of things, these different skill sets that we develop, right? I try to go and buy linoleum tools at art supply stores and find out that, no, we don't carry those anymore. Nobody uses them. Well, now I got to find a different way to do this, but at the same time, that this isn't just a dead thing. This is something that we're still going to do, and a great deal, a lot of people do it. It's just in that context of this store, they're not equipped to handle it. It doesn't mean it's just a lost thing now. You go and you find those tools that you require someplace else, right? You're still going to make the cookies, you know what I mean? I'm missing stuff, and I'm so sorry. I'm just glad we are back to being able to question again. Yeah, for sure. Like you've got to be able to wonder things. You've got to be able to ask new things. There's so much out there in the world, and there's so many different ways that we can see things and understand things. Authority always wants to say this is the way it is. It's that way and only that way. It's not that way. It's never only ever been that way. The last 3 years, no one was allowed to question on the internet. I think it might even go farther than that. I think that it might even go to the extent that there's this sort of last 5 to 10 years, is this growing sort of, it has a lot to do with postmodernism and different directions that universities are taking in their teaching. And it has an awful lot to do with the professors today tend to be a lot of the people that were, when I was at Woodstock, when we were at, whatever extremely left institution in the 60s protesting, and now they want to implement all these extreme ideas. Problem with that, and a lot of leaning on sociological interpretations of how the world works, as opposed to scientific, factual ways that they work outside of notions. And then when we get into, and then with nobody can say it like Dee Dee. Wow, I guess. I'm sorry. So the virus just capitalized on it all. It's just sort of put a cap on all that stuff and sort of said, look, you've been in a bottle and this bottle sucks. And so when you got kids that are coming out of schools full of thoughts and ideas, and then when something like the big home hangout, I don't know how many different ways can I say something without actually saying the word. When that all went down, now you got people that are sitting there encapsulated in these thunking boxes. You did, Jim? It's called the cooties. And I think we all know where they come from. So when you're sitting there and you're isolated and you got your headspace going off on things and your value judgment going off on things because your whole world has changed and your whole specific sense of self has changed, you're going to automatically start focusing on the I couldn't do this, I can't do that, I can't be this, rather than looking at the, hey, here's all the stuff that I've got, and what can I do with that? And that is the worst. I mean, to me, that's just, it's so disruptive and it's so discourteous to ourselves when we do that. And we all do it, right? I mean, we all do it to some extent. I do a thing here. I'm going to just talk about this for 1 second. When I put down ink, like with this Faber-Castell Pit Artist pen brush, I tap it with my finger and just squash it just a little bit, because it allows me to control the tonality a little bit and just diffuse it so it's not as crisp as the other line beside it. Sneaky cheeky, huh? All right. So, yeah, especially things like situations where everybody's, isolated from themselves and trapped inside their own heads. They're going to make all these old associations, all these old assumptions about self-worth and self-value. And when it comes to that creative journey, that creative output, as much as everybody says, oh, I'm home for this amount of time, I'm going to accomplish blah. Right? Squashing is science. You just want me to say it again. I think that because of the whole, while I'm home during this enforced situation, I'm going to accomplish ABC. And there's far more to the facility of you accomplishing ABC than just being in your house, right? So, it's something to consider anyways, is that it's a little late. I recognize it. It's a little late to talk about it now, but if you can do that, I sort of talked about this with people at the time, but if you can do that, if you can reinterpret the way that you associate the things that you have done, it's not about, well, I'm going to take on this larger than a normal project. Well, you look at the larger than the project that you're on amount of work that you've already done, and recognize that this is just one more plateau step up the mountain. There's a lot to be said for that. And if we could just give ourselves that, if we could just give ourselves a moment to be aware of that, the rest of it's all gravy. Nice and easy. Piece of cake. Yes, piece of cake. How you says? How you says the piece of cake? Oh, I didn't say. Today's music is the Rheostatics. If you don't know the Rheostatics, hold on. Look up this record. The Rheostatics. Double Live. Such a wonderful album. Very Canadian. Frank should be listening to this already. Oh yeah, it really does. It really does work with white ink. Some certain kinds. There's certain kinds of ink that are paint pens, you're just making a mess, but with ink it can definitely do something. And you can also push the direction of the mark as well. Welcome aboard, Raul. I come at when I'm working in black as opposed to working, dark marks on a light piece of paper. When I'm working light marks on a dark piece of paper, it's the same thing. I'm still building up, right? So Frank has a speech this afternoon. Oh, that's so cool. Is that with the Mixed Masters? What is it called? I can't remember what that's called, but I know that he's a member of Toastmasters. Toastmasters. Okay, so there's also different things that you can do, like wax pencils make great marks, and of course your old jelly roll and your paint pens. But Toastmasters, thank you, Dee. All right. So I started putting all these marks in for the horse, but I think that what I really need to do is I forgot to leave enough space really for the second horse, because they're in a car together. Car ride. Uh-oh, Raoul's lurking. That's how I picture lurking, by the way. Just lurking. I know it's not what people do. I'm just, I'm ridiculous. Hope your appointment goes well, Raoul. So I also like to draw in the negative. It's not sometimes the marks you put down. It's the silhouettes that you leave. I think that works for me when I'm drawing like this. Well, that's basically what you're doing with the whole page, but I mean specifically about just leaving large volumes where you haven't put any details in, and just allow the darkness of the form. So horses and hearses is today's suggestion from the Kremlinator. So I'm doing a little bit of cross hatching to build up some of the textures of basically like trees, forest behind as the car moves past. And then I'm going to put a couple of white movement lines across that and just play with the notion of it. But first, I got to draw Wilbur and his lady. Okay. There we go. I'll bring that up a little bit more when I start doing a little bit of ink work in there. So I'm thinking about the subjects as objects. I'm not thinking about them as lines. I think about them as shapes and as form. So thinking about them as shapes and as form allows me to look at this volume, this plane on the face here, 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 except for on a horse. But I'm thinking about these different planes and how light hits those planes more than I'm worried about the contour of the face and the lines and then the lines around the eyes. We're not drawing that way. We're looking at filling in planes. It's kind of similar in that approach to think about it like painting. When you're painting, you're not really painting lines as much as you're painting form, value, shapes. So it's that sort of jazz that goes through my noggin. The old nogginator. I think I'm going to give this one a lot of hair. hard to drive when you have hair in your eyes, but that's going to be the situation at hand. Well, I hope Frank does good well today. Frankly Mapley. You can find him at Salazar Art Nation. I hope that it goes well today, his speech. I'm curious about what it's about. I believe his speech title is War. What is it good for? It's not. I'm being silly. That's why I said I'm curious what it's about. Phlebotomy and you. So looking at things as volume, clearly it's a messy thing along the way, right? But once you start pulling those values out, it starts to make this sort of cogent logic to it. And the things that you're intimating 5 minutes ago are now clearly distinctive marks. It's just about adding little bits to them and building those up a little bit more as you go. Has anybody ever ridden a horse, or has anybody ever had a horse of their own or anything like that? I always find that sort of stuff interesting. It's something that seems so commonplace in other parts of the world, but I'm trying to make these two horses distinct from one another. You don't want to just keep drawing the same horse over and over again. Diddy says, I have ridden but not owned a horse. And Malcolm says, I rode horses for a couple of years. Well, that's fantastic. I have never, I've seen a horse. I've come close to one. I've never got on a horse. Hey, hiya, Chuck Spix. I love that she goes on that. Philip rode a horse once when he was around 19 or 20. It was so uncomfortable. Yep, I just want to go over there. Yeah. It's like they got a mind of their own. I always wondered this. This was my notion as a kid. When the horse leans forward to eat some grass, how come the cowboy just doesn't fall over the front of the horse? That was a real dilemma in my head when I was a child. It's just, I couldn't. They lean forward the whole year. Why doesn't he just fall off? Or when they turn a corner, how do they turn a corner? And in my mind, the horse actually went bent a little, just sort of bent. Yeah, kids are dumb. Then I found out how it works. So I'm just putting marks together for the second horsey, and so I'm going to change these lines. I love pencil holders. If you don't have pencil holders, please get some pencil holders. They save your butt a lot, right? And they let you have a better grip without tightening your hand a lot when you've got your pencil gets smaller. For those that are uninformed. All right, there's his schnoz. That's the official term. So the idea here is that the first panel is going to establish that it's horses and hearses. And so the initial thing that I want to establish is that the horses are, of course, riding in the back of a hearse, right? A very customized, cool dragster hearse. It's a silly notion, but it's just, I don't know. I sort of, as soon as I started drawing the horse, that I'm like, am I going to put a hearse under this thing? And then I went, hey, Big Daddy Roth dragster, why not do that? If you're not familiar with Big Daddy Roth, you probably are and don't realize it. He's the guy that did Ratfink, a lot of the 1950s dune buggy, cool, crazy rat, crazy little monster-looking things that were all driving dragster cars. Excuse me? That's fantastic. That's going in the script. When see, that's a wonderful way to start a page too, is with investment right into a conversation. Like the first thing somebody says is, excuse me, you want to tell me that again? Right? Did you remember Ratfink? Yeah, I really like Big Daddy Roth. And it's funny, Alex Toth, the artist, he did some actual comics about Big Daddy Roth. And I always thought those were really cool. I'm a big Alex Toth fan though, so. I'll change this just a little bit. And then I gotta relent here and realize that, hey, stop over analyzing the marks to get down and just keep moving. So back to the back to the thing I was chatting about earlier. It's like, it's such an easy thing for us to talk ourselves out of something before we recognize it's not as challenging as we're making it out to be in the moment, just because we've developed these sort of pre-programmed neuropathic connections to just assert negatively, or to associate that it's not going to happen because of X, Y, Z. And it's so easy to do. It's a lot of people, when you get sick, it's so easy to stay sick. And not because, not taking light of the fact of whatever the illness is. I'm talking about just conceding to the fact you're sick, conceding to the fact of that, or conceding to and in the same context, conceding yourself to the fact that you're going to talk yourself down from the endeavor. You're going to talk yourself down from the projects you're on, or from, the possibility you have of moving forward on a venture, because your default switch kicks in. And you're going to say to yourself, well, I don't know. I don't have the skill set to do that. I'm not going to learn them. Or, like I do it too, right? Like I'm always talking about, and everybody's like, you should try this program. And nope. I say no so fast. And it's not, but I just to be straightforward and honest on it, it's not because I don't want to do it, or I don't have the capability to take on a new thing and to try a new thing, or that I'm not stubborn. It's a case of I got enough jostling around now, and I'm finding out some stuff along the way of the same stuff that I'm trying to do with these skills that I have. And at a certain point, you got to stop adding programs, basically, right? Hey, Chris, welcome aboard. How's marketing going? I always worry about that with people. I really do. And I think that those ways of looking at the the way that we look at these projects or these undertakings or these opportunities and immediately talk ourselves down from that. It's always unfortunate to me. Because I know you can do it, you know. But we do it. We all do it. I do it too. I don't want to learn any more, drawing programs right now. And yet, I say that, but I know I will eventually. I know I will. I know I'll switch out eventually. Try something different. But for the meanwhile, and by something different, it might be so basic as to, what? Did Chris start using Photoshop that's not from 2004? It's modern now. I love these sort of brush pens. And I so encourage everybody to try. I'm sorry, you can't see that. It's flashing out because of the black. It's a Faber-Castell. They're a nice one. It's kind of a different way than I'm drawing today, I recognize, but there we go. I'm going to do that pencil. It's tiring to evaluate oral productions of basic students. I could understand that. I could understand that for sure. Oh, it's going to be a good day. I emptied out my pencil sharpener. And I made a big old mess while I did it. All right. I gotta fix this thing. So I'm sure that there's moments that we've all had along the way where, you just sort of looked at something in front of you and just went, nope. Like, I'm really intrigued by the scavenger hunt project that a bunch of people just did. I think that's and then another project, of course, that was on the scavenger hunt project was on Janet's stream, and then Dee Dee had a stamp project for a bunch of people too. Sorry, I'm missing stuff. I apologize. Philip says, I like Faber-Castell fine markers. Between those and the microns, I always preferred the FCs. It's a good day when you have to empty your pencil sharpener. Chris says it's too hot here. Good Lord. Oh my goodness. I'd never change out of a bathing suit. Which is hard to do in professional situations. There's got to be a content warning on me at this point. My grandkids use my pencil crayons, and the moment that they do, forget it. It's funny, we talk about in Canada, one of the things that we associate is that we have seasons here as opposed to places down south. And I don't think that people appreciate enough that you do have seasons. It's just they all just range in the warmer than here's, Small wins. I like that a lot. Dude. That's on point. That's for sure. Take the win. Acknowledge the win and build on that. Allow yourself the fact that you've got capabilities to do things because of the things that to do new things because of the stuff that you've already taken on and managed to survive. There's the Pulp Fiction movie. Well, I'm not a Tarantino guy at all because I know a lot of the films that they were originally before he redid them. He always says things like, they say in the soundtrack, it's the station where the 70s survived. And I feel like that a lot when it comes to how you generally associate things. Dee Dee says it's going to be hot here soon, where she is. 100% humidity. Yeah. That's not for me. Hey, everybody. Chris is it Kilue? Kilue? I like umulats. Scavenger hunt video is on Chris's channel. I want to look that up. We're going to look that up for sure. Yeah. All right. Yeah, everybody check that out. You don't like humidity and hot together. I don't think anybody does. Yeah. Oh, so Chris, can I ask you this question? And Dee Dee, maybe you can answer this one too. Do people say, but at least it's a dry heat? You have to go back to January, mid-January to find it. You completed the scavenger hunt in January? Oh my goodness. No 11th hour student here. No, 11:30 the night before. Gotta get it done. All right, so start getting some more form in here. Not here. It's a humid heat. At least it's a dry heat. So just playing with some marks, you sort of find more as you go. I finished it before going to classes, otherwise it wouldn't have been finished. Oh, I could understand that. Yeah, if you get something in front of you, you can just get going on. Get it. Because then everything else comes up. Okay. All right. So the other decisions I have to make for myself is the shape of the hearse that they're riding in, and the larger footprint that they take up in the environment around them. So that's what I'm trying to rough in really fast now. And then I think that in the Photoshop is where I'm going to put movement lines. And the reason that I think I'll do it there is the wonderful thing about Photoshop is that because you can do it in layers, you can do a swipe across the surface, and then you can pull it back and erase out the parts that you don't want in a far more controlled manner. And I like that. Is anybody else here done Toastmasters or the thing that Franklin's at today? I don't know too much about it. And when I hear Toastmasters, I think the roast of Donald Trump. I don't know. There we go. I try to do this too. I'll continue a value through. If there's another object that's in front, I'll continue that value that's behind through to the other side in some small way, just so that it carries over, right? Just so that it moves into the next environment. There we go. You see my pencil sliding out of the pencil holder with some quality art. Think about where the muscles are. That's always a tricky thing. Horse muscles is not the same as us muscles. And vintage. My house is fresh in spring and summer, too cold in winter sometimes. Chris, you're down in Mexico, right? I think we have mild winters, barely under 32 Fahrenheit. What is that in Celsius? Can anybody calculate that for me? What is 32 Fahrenheit in Celsius? If anybody knows what that, and then I'm going to hit you with another number that's going to make you hate me just a tiny bit. You'll be like, what are you, mad? What are you, mental? It is 0 Celsius, barely under 0. Oh my goodness. Okay. So what is minus 42 Celsius? Because I've camped in minus 42 Celsius. I've got a parka that I do my shoveling with throughout the winter here in Canada. And my parka has this big blue stain at the one pocket, parka pocket. And the reason that it has that stain is that my pens, because I cannot not bring pens or things to draw or write with, exploded because of the cold. So permanently staining my parka. Winters go here from 0 early mornings, and then midday you have 18. Oh heavens. Yep. Winters here, they get cold, but it's not like we're not living in the Arctic here. Minus 42 is only minus 43 or 44. Holy camoli. Clearly, I don't understand how Fahrenheit works at all. So, don't even get me started about whatever Kelvin is. Well, hopefully these look like horses. It's in your head, you might think it looks like something, but it does not always necessarily mean that your viewer's going to look at it and go, oh, yes, those are nice dogs. They're supposed to be horses, not dogs. Kelvin is Celsius minus 273.15. Good Lord. Yeesh. Gesundheit. Okay. Check this line out. What am I missing? I'm like 180 miles north of Mexico City. It's about like 200 kilometers. 2.5 hours drive on a highway. So you're up in an area. It's like that's. I saw on a map that that's a warmer there than it would be in Mexico City itself, right? Geography is hard. See, I keep wanting to move this front lip of the top of the vehicle because I want to account for enough volume in the carriage area for both horses to fit, but I don't want this panel to be 6/5 of the page, you know. When I'm drawing, I try to roughly have the shape of the intended panel finished with the drawing, or otherwise I'm having to fart around with it when I'm in post. So I'm going to try to structure a little bit of the shoulder in here now. I live very close to a city named Querétaro. It is a modern area named Saquarcipada on the northeast. I probably butchered all those names, and I apologize for that. That's pretty cool. Okay, so that's still, if I remember correctly, it's still green belt area. Okay, so yeah, see now I feel like I've got a better sense of space for the two horse characters and in the top of the hearse. So, which is really what I was trying to pursue there. And that would be the front part of the car. Oh, thanks, Chris. Chris is saying that she likes the white effects on black paper. It's really just sort of getting your brain to look at it in the opposite. It's just look at it as shapes, right? Sorry, it's so flooded out the light. I'm going to get even sillier with this. I want to introduce a notion that these are the two sons of the funeral director, and you boys go out there and drum up some business, and they'll be like, "We got this, Dad." I don't know why. These are the sort of things that sort of pop in your head as you're going. And but the notion of that, of a father horse standing here saying, "You boys go on out there and get us some business." And yes, I may very well draw the dad horse with a mustache because I'm a lunatic. But just little things like that, sort of. Even when you're doing, sometimes when we look at, I'm going to do a story with pandas, and we're like, well, let's think about pandas, as opposed to just giving pandas, anthropomorphize it, give pandas human personalities. Write for what you know. I don't know what pandas think about. I don't. My last page says, I read that one should write on what interests them, and I'm like, that's a dangerous statement coming out of my yapper. But, you know. Okay, so there's our two horses. And when you build up the white values, cross-hatching areas over areas, so that's one way to do it. Another way is to do the spotting with the white pen, the white ink. And you can do that with brush as well. But I'll add little bits more as I go into it. I'm really wanting to try to cover as much of the composition as I can. We're already at an hour, so it's taking forever to draw this. But it sort of makes you have to stop and slow down and think a little bit more in the process as you're going, because it is the opposite way to go about drawing the page, you know. All right, so I think I'm going to have their dad chastising him. All right, I got an idea. Sorry, I got one of the kids is asking me something. I just got to... We've graduated out of the can I eat this questions, and we've now graduated in terms of life to the how do I do taxes? That's such a challenging thing. That's just an example. My one someone was asking about the other day. That's not what the conversation's actually even about. All right. So trying different things is always fun to me, and taking these sort of... That pencil is toast. Taking these challenges along the way, and sort of trying to figure out what you can do with the skills that you've already developed, and the get a different eraser. I don't like the looks of that one. Yeah, it was the eraser. Look at that. It's like a weapon. All right, so I'm going to draw the old horse, the old dad horse here, who's talking to his kids. No explanation whatsoever, by the way. This is the sort of thing I like that I really don't... the suspension of disbelief you have to have for certain things. Like, consider Disney's... Is it Disney or Pixar? Whoever did the Cars movie franchise. How does that world work? All of these buildings and gas stations and all of this stuff. Who made them? Like, is all the cars have come to life in a post-apocalyptic wasteland as your mankind have all died out? Where's all the dead bodies? Anyways, but how did these two horses get into this hearse? Right? There's no explanation to this at all. Or how are they going to drive this car? Just dumb things like that. But those are the sort of things that are fun to just throw out the window, not worry about too much, because why bother? But this is sort of stuff that I think about. Who made those little plastic things on the show Lay's Tips? Yeah. All these little things in these different worlds, you know, like, you just sort of have to just go with it. Just go with it. Yeah, shoelace tips, right? What did I say? I just read it as red. Okay, so now I'm drawing Dad, and it's going to be an old gray mirror type. So this is the part where I talk about how do I draw the face, or how do you break, what are the shapes that makes up a horse's face, as opposed to just thinking about the volumes that make up a horse's face. Those, like I said before, those planar volumes is what I'm trying to get. As the dad says, listen, don't you be going over 50 miles an hour. Just drive calmly through the streets. Try to drum up some business. There are YouTubers who have created whole theories about those movies. Oh my gosh, is there really? See, it's not just me. Other people have those nagging questions. I like that. How come when Gandalf comes back in Lord of the Rings as Gandalf the White, he's got a different haircut? Did they cut his hair before they sent him back to the world? One theory that connects all Pixar movies. Oh, I actually saw that about the little old lady in the hut during Brave, and she's got little statuettes of all the other Pixar, like many of the Pixar characters from other films. Yeah, I saw a video about that, and I thought that was neat. But yeah, you're right. There's, whole assessments of how things work. I just found out the Harry Potter movie franchise is canceled. The Fantastic Beasts films are done. They're not going to finish all 5. They're stopping at 3, which is entirely expected and understandable because of reasons, legal reasons, behaviors. And yet DC is still going ahead putting out a film of the Flash movie with the same actor. So I guess it's a case of choice, case of moral association, maybe. I don't know. It's all about the characters of the players involved, right? How they feel about continuing working with people in films. But the Ezra Miller guy has made a mess out of 2 franchises. All right. I think they might be rebooting Harry Potter as a TV show. I gotta stop doing that. Nope, I'm out. I cannot imagine how bad that would be at this point. See, there you go. Negative assertion. That's this guy. When you do something in recent history that is so resoundingly complete to some extent, it's a complete structural narrative with characters and a fulfillment arc. Why would you go back and redo that? Why? Like, wait 15, 20 years and then redo it as whatever. But HBO will remake all the books, 1 season for each book. It's under production. Harry Potter again. Good Lord. That's sad. And what is that? HBO? I don't have HBO. I don't have HBO on for a reason. DC was very close to releasing them. I'm actually surprised they still are. It's because the film's been finished for a while. That's not why. There's 3 DC superhero movies that are completely finished that they're not releasing, including a Batgirl film, and there's 2 others. And they have to remake everything with every gender. Oh, is that why they're redoing it all now? So here's a comic. My favorite comic book of all time is the dorkiest comic. It really is. It started in 1958. It's called The Legion of Superheroes. Back in that time period, Superboy was the Adventures of Superman when he was a teenager was a hot idea for young people, and so they started this series of adventures that he had where he goes 1,000 years into the future, and he meets, but basically, like, it's almost like an entire army. Like, there's over time and over all the years, there's been about 96 people in his team, not all at once, but as they add up over time. But the Legion of Superheroes is all these kids that are inspired by the things that he did as a teenager. And really dorky. Cosmic Boy, Lightning Lad. Anyhow, it's this wonderfully joyous and optimistic thing. They keep rebooting this comic book, and each time trying to make it either A, darker, or B, retooling everybody to hit the scope of this sociological ideology that's going on out there today, which is fine. It's important that things are representative of the, your marketplace out there, that you potentially could be buying your material. But I get that. But it's the same book. They've done it 5 times. There's a whole scale other things that they've never touched. This one series 5 times. So there's just no point in reading them anymore, because you wouldn't know what it is anyways. And it has very little to do with the sort of youthful optimism that was presented in the 1950s, 60s, and the earlier days of it. Jim Shooter, who's the guy that was a big editor of Marvel Comics in the 1980s, 70s, and 80s, he started in comics writing for that book at 14 years old. And, it was just youthful enthusiasm. But nowadays, everything is ridiculous. And you got to make characters, sexuality really evident. None of that. These are for kids. This doesn't matter. You don't have to talk about what this guy's sexuality is. I'm a fuddy-duddy maybe, but I think that there's all this focus on issues or ideologies and less focus on storytelling with a lot of projects. And I find that kind of disappointing. And when you look at movies and you look at television shows and the constant remaking of stuff, and well, we're going to change all these characters to this kind of a character. We're going to then do a different project. Do a separate project. Do something autonomous of this other thing that you're now, pardon the expression, of bastardizing, and find some originality. I said this yesterday. I pick on Spider-Man, and I pick on Batman, and I pick on Spawn, because, unless you're going to do something that properly deconstructs the thing, like Peter Baggy's megalomaniacal Spider-Man, you're not going to break new ground with Spider-Man. It's just Spider-Man. It's just reiterations of the same thing. And you're hard pressed to explain to young people that this is a soap opera. Your comic book reading is actually watching a soap opera. If you give your mom a hard time, or your dad a hard time, or whoever watches it at home, maybe reevaluate that. Representation's one thing, canceling is another. Yeah, cancel culture's it's a little extreme. I hated the Mermaid trailer. The movie is too dark. The colors chosen by Disney are dull and boring. A YouTuber fixed the colors and it looks better. They've made is this the live action thing Disney's doing with all of their projects? Oh, yeah, Didi agrees with something I said. Disney wants their live movies to be just awful, or just to be awful. Now they're doing Lilo and Stitch and Moana. Oh my goodness, Disney. Wow. Okay, so here's another thing that a lot of people might not be aware of. In order to maintain the integrity of an ownership license on a patented character in superhero comics, you have got to keep inserting these villains to fight your hero. Every X amount of years, you've got to keep reinserting these factoids about characters every so many years in order to maintain ownership of a license on those characters. So that's why the Rogues Gallery of Spider-Man is these X amount of characters, because if they don't keep reusing them, other people, after so many years, other people can just go ahead and put those guys in their book. And Marvel can't do anything about it. They can't maintain the integrity of the license. And it's the same way for all these major companies. It's a ridiculous conceit, but it's one that's real. There's this sort of process that goes on where they're constantly putting the same people in stuff. Disney's finding that themselves too, because since you're allowed to use the really early designs of Mickey Mouse's character, this was what was on the plate now, and I think that Disney managed to. I don't know, what do you call that when you hire people to harass representatives in politics in order to give you what you want because you've got too much money and not enough ethics? Is that too much to say? Speaking of too dark, I was trying to watch the Picard series. I can't see a damn thing. I believe studios use dark movies to hide cheap special effects. No, I think it's to impose dramatas. I think that the reason everything's dark and edgy is because then it doesn't require as much story because half of it is emulated in just the lighting alone. It's dark lighting. This is intense. If it's bright like a classroom and everybody's sitting on a spaceship going, I think the bad guys are going to get us, it looks like 1980s Next Generation. Star Trek, right? So that's why Picard is as dark as it is to represent the new age. Doesn't make it good, but all of these things suffer from bad story. Watch the Barbie trailer. It's way too bright. So there's something where they specifically make it bright. But it's way too crazy. I haven't watched it, Philip. Don't mess with my original Picard. Don't anybody tell her anything about Picard because she's just going to be mad. It's not your Picard. It's not your Picard at all, right? It's like, how about Toy Story 4? Toy Story 4, there's these conversations that it is somehow representative of the Holocaust. There goes one. I'm demonetized. Never, that I ever was. Who says that about a thing called Toy Story? Like, good heavens. And sometimes it's putting the wrong stories in the wrong context. Archie comics has nothing to do with the Archie of the 60s. I think that if you put a proper investment of specifically doing a 1960s style Archie's TV show, kids would love it because it's so quirky and so authentic of its time and open-minded, which a lot of people don't give Archie enough appreciation of. I think you'd see an awful lot of affectatious change from that Archie show because it's millennials love like the Golden Girls and the Brady Bunch and all of this stuff from the past, because again, originality is not a strong suit for this generation, and they would eat that up. I really think that they would eat that up. There will be a Toy Story 5. Oh, for heaven's sakes! Like, just think about doing a Partridge Family today. How absurd is that? How absolutely absurd is the idea of that family traveling around in that ridiculous bus? The way they did the Brady Bunch movies back like 20 years ago, where they had the Brady Bunch family living in the 1960s right next door to 1990. Oh, it's 90s. 1990s grunge aesthetic. Yes, that's exactly right, because it just makes it its own thing. So, look at stuff like that. Whatever it is that you're doing, whatever it is that you're creating, while I always am talking about how the fact is that you're doing it from your own viewpoint and you're doing it from how you make your marks and how you tell your story, I think that is easily a lesson that is completely missed in Hollywood. Because if they did have a hold of that, if they did have a grasp of that, you wouldn't see constant remakes and reinterpretations of things. They did Lost in Space, and they did their darndest to make Lost in Space representative of the 1960s TV show with a contemporary flair. They really didn't want to change an awful lot about the characters. I mean, they tried on that one, right? But then you've got other things where Westworld is so far removed from the sci-fi books and films of the 70s. But you can't really make it, it wouldn't have. The whole reason people watch that show is because it's called Westworld. Chris, got to fix lunch. I got to go too, Chris. Listen, I'm going to take off. I got a couple things I got to do. He says, I am glad I love to read. And honestly, that's something we should all do. Thanks for coming and hanging out, Chris. Thanks for coming and hanging out, everybody else. I think that to summarize this sort of thing I mentioned earlier, whatever you're doing, whatever you're working on, whatever you got in front of you, whatever new things you're trying to pick up on, whatever opportunities that come your way, think about the things you've already done. Think about the things that you've already accomplished. Think about what you've already got under your belt for your skill sets, and trust in that. Trust in that knowledge that I have an idea of what I'm capable of, and I have an idea that I can try this new thing. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But you're never going to know either way if it just doesn't happen. Rather than planning all of these new endeavors and new approaches and new interpretations of everything, sometimes it's important to just realize what's worked for us and allow ourselves that. That's the sort of stuff I want to talk about today. It's just furthering the idea of recognizing your actualized reality and your actualized creative artistic path. Welcome into my brain, folks. I'm too much thinking. But thank you everybody for coming out. Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Dee Dee. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Malcolm. Anybody else that's come in and joined us, thank you. If there's anybody I'm missing from the chat, apologies. If you've got a one-page comic idea that you want to suggest, it doesn't matter how kooky it is. Today's suggestion is Hearses and Horses, and it was suggested by the Kremlinator. But if you've got a one-page idea or suggestion or something, and if there's any of the one-page comics that you see that I've done, if you look through my Instagram or Facebook's feed, or if you look at just the header images and all the videos I've been posting on YouTube, go for it. Please go for it. And I'd love to see it. I'd love to see it, especially if it's a completely different take than I've had, because that's the keen jelly beans. All right. In the meantime, I'm going to sign off. I'll have this posted for tomorrow, and I'll be back tomorrow at 2:00. Everybody stay safe and well. Have a nice night. If I don't see you tomorrow, have a nice, and a good Easter and everything else coming up. In the meantime, thanks for coming out, gang, hanging out. And I hope that some of my ramblings make some sense to folks. And if they don't, hey, we're all in this together. There's stuff I can learn too. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dee Dee, for the thanks. And I'll be back tomorrow at 2:00. Bye for now.